I sabotaged my brother's college application because he didn't deserve it. Growing up, my younger brother Jacob was always the golden boy of the family. He had the looks, the charm, and the grades, or at least, that's how my parents chose to see it. I was the quiet one, the one who stayed out of trouble, the one who worked hard but never got noticed. Every time I brought home a B, my mom would sigh and say, "Ice cream." A framed picture on the fridge. It wasn't just about grades, though. Jacob knew how to play the part. He'd volunteer to help mom with the dishes only when dad was around to see it. He'd fake being sick on yard work days and magically recover just in time for pizza night. And every time I tried to point it out, I came off looking like the bitter older brother who couldn't handle his younger sibling's success. But there was one thing I had over Jacob. I worked my ass off. I got into college on my own merit, with no shortcuts, no letters from family friends, and definitely no parental micromanaging. I studied, applied for scholarships, and held down 2 part-time jobs to make it work. Jacob, on the other hand, he coasted. He spent most of senior year vaping with his friends behind the gym and sweet-talking teachers into last-minute extensions. But thanks to mom and dad's constant coddling, he somehow still scraped together the application materials for 2 state universities and 1 Ivy. The Ivy was the kicker. Our parents treated it like a foregone conclusion. They called relatives, planned visits, even bragged about it to their church friends. "Jacob's got big plans," mom would say. "He's not like some people who settle." That jab. Yeah, that was aimed at me. I could have let it go. I could have let Jacob send off his essays, let him walk around the house like he already had his acceptance letter in hand, and let my parents throw him a congratulations dinner before he even heard back. But something in me snapped. It started with the essay. Jacob didn't write I, they asked me to look it over, which is Jacob code for rewrite it entirely. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone while I basically ghost wrote his personal statement. The worst part, he didn't even say thank you. Just took the printed version, stapled it, and walked out of the room. So I made a copy. I waited a few days. Then I deleted the file from his laptop when he left it open. I made sure the only version he had was in his backpack. Then I waited until he left for basketball practice. I opened the backpack, pulled out the essay, and swapped it. My version looked identical. Same formatting, same word count, even a similar writing style. But the content, completely different. It was pretentious, condescending, and borderline offensive in places. I made him sound like a privileged jerk who thought community service was for lesser students, and that he deserved to be accepted because of natural talent, not effort. I even added a fake quote from a made-up family friend that painted Jacob as a future leader. Despite occasional lapses in humility, it was just enough to be believable, but just enough to get him blacklisted. Then I resealed the backpack and went on with my day. He mailed it out the next morning without checking it. Typical Jacob move. I thought that'd be the end of it. But it got worse, and maybe that's why I'm writing this now. The Ivy rejected him. Not just rejected. They sent a personal letter saying his application did not reflect the integrity and values we expect from prospective students. My parents were devastated. Jacob was furious. He accused the mail system, blamed his guidance counselor, even cried. I watched it all from the hallway. Silent. But he still had the state schools, and I couldn't let him get away with it. The second sabotage wasn't as clean, and I still feel a bit dirty about it. His transcript copies were sealed in school envelopes, but the recommendation letters? My mom had printed extras from the family printer because she wanted to keep copies just in case. One of them, his history teacher's, was glowing. Too glowing, so I forged a second copy. I mimicked the teacher's signature, then rewrote the entire letter with passive-aggressive language. Stuff like, Jacob's enthusiasm occasionally borders on disruptive, and while Jacob exhibits leadership, his teamwork needs improvement. I slipped the fake letter into one of the envelopes. It worked. One school waitlisted him, the other outright declined. 3 schools, 3 rejections. I expected Jacob to get angry, maybe scream, maybe throw something. Instead, he went quiet. Really quiet. He barely left his room for days. At dinner, he just pushed food around and stared at the wall. My parents were crushed, and suddenly, so was I. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel smarter. I felt empty. The worst part, he started applying to community college, and he looked different, more serious. He started studying, reading, talking about getting a part-time job. He even asked me for real help in a new essay, and I said yes. I don't know if I regret it yet, but I know this. For the first time in our lives, he's trying. I thought it would end there. A rejection or two, maybe some sulking, and Jacob would move on with his life. I imagined him working a regular job, maybe even discovering a bit of humility for the first time ever. In my mind, I had fixed something that was broken. Balanced the scales. Boy, I imagined him, but people like Jacob don't stay down for long, and lies, even well-crafted ones, have a way of leaking out. It started with my mom. "Did you help Jacob with his application essay?" she asked one evening, as casually as if she were asking what time I went to bed. I didn't flinch. "Yeah, he asked me to check for typos." She looked at me for a long moment. "Typos," she repeated. "That's all," I nodded, keeping my expression blank. Her eyes narrowed. Just a little. Because his essay didn't sound like him at all. Not even close. It was off. Weirdly arrogant. And Jacob doesn't even talk like that. "Well, maybe he was trying to sound impressive," I said with a shrug. "College essays make people weird." She didn't argue, just gave a quiet and went back to folding laundry. But I knew her well enough to recognize when she was planting seeds. I could practically see the doubt forming behind her eyes. The next day, Jacob called in sick to school. He stayed in bed most of the morning, then shuffled out in the afternoon and sat down across from me at the kitchen table. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like he was trying to solve a riddle with no answer. Finally, he asked, "Did you read my essay before I sent it?" I played it cool. "Yeah, why?" "I don't know," he said, frowning. "Something's been bugging me about it. I don't remember writing half the stuff that was in there." I let out a fake laugh. "Seriously? You must have been more zoned out than I thought." He didn't laugh back. "Did you change anything?" "No, dude. Why would I?" He hesitated, then finally gave a half shrug. "Guess I was just stressed. I've been reading so many drafts I probably forgot which one I sent." My stomach twisted, but I stayed calm. He wasn't sure. He was fishing, and I couldn't let him find anything. But paranoia is a tricky thing. Once someone feels it, they start digging. 2 nights later, I came home to find Dad sitting in the living room with a pile of Jacob's college materials spread out on the table. Essay drafts, printouts, copies of recommendations. My heart dropped. "Hey," I said slowly, dropping my backpack. "What's going on?" Dad didn't look up. "Jacob thinks someone tampered with his application." My mouth went dry. "He says the essay he sent isn't the same as the one he wrote. We're trying to figure out where the mistake happened. Maybe the wrong version got printed." My brain raced. "I mean, it's possible. He was using your laptop, right? Could have saved over the wrong file." Dad finally looked up at me. His eyes were sharp. "You helped him with the essay, right?" "Just a little." "Did you ever make changes without telling him?" I shook my head, maybe too quickly. Dad stared at me for a long moment before sighing. "Well, either way, it's done. But he's thinking of appealing." My heart jumped. "Appealing?" "Yeah. Writing to the schools, explaining what happened, maybe asking them to reconsider." I tried not to panic. "Can you even do that?" "Apparently. If there's proof of a mistake or miscommunication." Proof. That word echoed in my skull. I had been so careful, but had I missed something? That night, I tore through my folders, deleting everything. Every draft, every mock essay, every fake recommendation. I wiped the files clean, even ran a data scrubber just in case, but I couldn't scrub the one thing I didn't have access to. Jacob's memory. Over the next week, he started asking more questions, subtle at first. "Hey, do you remember if I used the quote about community service? Or was that thing about natural talent your idea or mine?" He wasn't accusing Minot yet, but the suspicion was growing, and it didn't help that Mom had started treating me like a suspect. I'd walk into the kitchen and conversations would stop. I'd sit at the table, and Jacob would glance sideways at me like I was a stranger. Dad stayed neutral, but even he seemed distant. And then came the moment that almost undid me completely. Jacob came into my room one night, holding something in his hand. "I found this," he said, tossing a crumpled piece of paper onto my desk. It was a printed version of the fake essay. The same version I thought I had destroyed. I stared at it, then looked up at him. "Where did you find that?" In the shred pile. You didn't tear it up completely. I swallowed hard. I was just messing around. I wrote a parody version of your essay for fun. For fun? Yeah, like a joke. I thought you'd think it was funny. But then I figured you'd get pissed. So I trashed it. He didn't say anything. I added, I swear I didn't send it. I wouldn't do that. He nodded slowly, like he wasn't sure if he believed me. Yeah? Okay. Then he left. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't controlling the story anymore. They were. Jacob, my parents, the schools. The narrative was slipping through my fingers, piece by piece. I had taken a swing at Jacob's future thinking I was in control, that I was righting some old injustice. But now I was just waiting to see if anyone would hit back. The silence in our house was different now. It wasn't the absence of noise, it was the presence of suspicion. Of too many unspoken things crowding the air like smoke. And then the call came. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, when Jacob walked in holding his. His face was blank, unreadable. He sat across from me and said, "New called." I looked up slowly. What did they say? They're requesting an official meeting. Virtual. With me and Dad. They want to clarify some inconsistencies in my application. My stomach sank. He kept going. Apparently some of the phrasing in my essay triggered a plagiarism check. Not enough to get me flagged officially, but enough for them to look deeper. I stayed quiet. He tilted his head. You still sticking with the I didn't send it story? I didn't answer. Right, he said, leaning back in his chair. Because that's going great. For the next few days I walked on glass. Jacob avoided me, but not angrily, more like I disgusted him. Like I had turned into something slimy under a microscope. And my parents? They were treating me with a cold politeness that was somehow worse than yelling. Until the night Jacob got drunk. He stumbled in around midnight, reeking of whiskey, and started yelling the second the front door closed behind him. You think I'm stupid? He slurred. You think I didn't know you hated me? I came down the stairs to find him swaying in the hallway, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. You sabotaged me, he growled. You sat there, smiling, helping, like some Fing angel, and you stabbed me in the back. I didn't mean to ruin your life. Then what the hell did you mean to do? Teach me a lesson? Show me how smart you are. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. You know what the worst part is? I didn't even need your help. My original essay was good enough. I was good enough. But you couldn't handle that, could you? Our parents rushed in a few moments later, dragging him away before it escalated. He kept shouting as they pulled him up the stairs. I hope you're happy now. You won. You ruined everything. The next morning he was gone. He'd packed a bag, taken the car, and left a note. I need space. Don't call me unless it's an emergency. Dad spent the morning trying to track him down. Mom cried on and off all day. I stayed in my room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how far the ripples of my decision were going to go. That weekend, something even worse happened. A teacher emailed my parents. Apparently, someone had anonymously forwarded Jacob's fake essay to the school board, claiming academic dishonesty. The teacher was asking questions. The principal wanted a meeting. Suddenly, it wasn't just about college. It was about our school. About Jacob's record. And I knew what this meant. Someone else knew. I rushed to my computer, double-checking every online folder, every draft. I had wiped everything, but what if someone had seen me on a shared drive, or screenshotted the document? Or good, what if Jacob had known the whole time and was just waiting to see how far I'd dig my own grave? Panic gripped my chest like a fist. That night my parents sat me down. The words were slow, careful. Did you do it? Mom asked. Dad's tone was softer. We need to know the truth. I stared at them. My instinct was to lie, again. But the walls were closing in. The fallout was outpacing me, so I said nothing, which was answer enough. Dad closed his eyes. Mom looked like she'd been punched. You could have just told us, she whispered. But I couldn't have. That was the point. I couldn't tell them how angry I'd been, how bitter, how sick I was of being invisible while Jacob got everything on a silver platter. And now, instead of fixing anything, I had broken more than I ever thought possible. I left the house the next day, not forever, just for air, for distance. I walked through the park, sat on a bench, and tried to understand who I had become. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Jacob, the first since he left. You should tell them the whole truth before someone else does. That was all. No swearing, no threats. Just a warning. The thing about guilt is, it doesn't let you stop. Even when you want to, it becomes a rhythm in your head, beating louder with every lie you tell to keep the first one hidden. I looked around at the empty park. The sun was setting behind the trees, and everything felt too quiet for the storm that was brewing in my life. I had thought revenge would feel satisfying, like justice. But sitting there in the silence I had created, all I felt was small and afraid. Because the story was no longer mine to control. I knew what I had to do, but knowing didn't make it easier. After Jacob's text, I didn't sleep. I just lay awake, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Every time I blinked, I saw his face the night he yelled at me. His words, raw and slurred, stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. You ruined everything. He was right. So the next morning I sat my parents down again. This time, not because they asked, because I had to. I had written everything out, word for word, on my laptop, but when I looked into their faces, I closed it. I had to do this the hard way. I lied, I said quietly. About everything. They sat still, like statues. I wrote the essay. I submitted it. I knew what I was doing. And when things got out of hand, I panicked. I thought maybe if I just pretended it wasn't me, it would go away. Why? Dad asked, his voice flat. I swallowed. Because I was tired. Of being second best. Of being invisible. Mom looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. She just stared at me, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. I know I heard him. I know I heard all of you. I paused, searching for words. I just didn't know it would go this far. Dad stood up, slowly, walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, and stared out the window for a long time before speaking. You've embarrassed this family. His words weren't loud. They were sharp, surgical. They cut deeper than yelling ever could. Mom didn't speak. She left the room. I sat alone in the kitchen for a long time. That week, I tried reaching out to Jacob again. I called, texted, emailed. No response. Then I went to his best friend, Ali. He worked at a music shop downtown, and I caught him during a slow afternoon. He looked up as I walked in, surprised, but not angry. Just wary. Hey, I said. Can I talk to you? He shrugged. About what? You know what. He sighed, put down the guitar he was tuning. Look, I don't know everything that happened, but Jacob's pissed. Like I've never seen him like this before. He told me not to say anything, but I think you should know he's planning something. My heart skipped. Like what? Eli hesitated. I don't know. But he said, she wants consequences, I'll give her some. That stuck with me the rest of the day. Was he going to report me to the school board? Go public? Tell the NIU admissions office? I couldn't blame him, but I couldn't stop imagining the worst. By Thursday, the principal called me in. I sat stiff in the cold office chair, palms sweating. The principal was stern but not cruel. We're looking into a formal complaint that was submitted regarding Jacob's application, she said. And given the timing, your name has come up. I nodded. I understand. She raised an eyebrow. Is there anything you want to share voluntarily? And I could have lied. Said I didn't know anything. Blamed someone anonymous. But I didn't. Yes, I said. It was me. She blinked. I wrote the essay. I submitted it. I did it without Jacob's knowledge, and then I lied to cover it up. There was a long silence. I see, she said finally. I signed a written confession. I was told it would go on my record, but given I had already been accepted to another school, the immediate consequences were minimal, at least academically. Socially? That was another story. News traveled fast in our small school. Within a day, whispers turned into stares, then into comments. I passed groups of kids in the hallway, and I could feel the judgment, like heat on the back of my neck. She tried to ruin her own brother's future. I heard she faked emails too. Jealous freak. Jacob didn't come back to school that week, but the absence made things worse. People started romanticizing him as the victim, the golden boy, the one who had it all taken from him, and I became the villain in everyone's story. Even the teachers treated me differently, like I was radioactive, dangerous. By Friday, I was sitting alone at lunch for the third day in a row, picking at my food, when my phone buzzed again. Jacob, you think an apology fixes this? I stared at the screen, then typed, no, but it's all I have. A minute passed. Not even close. I typed again, slower this time. What do you want me to do? He replied instantly. You'll see. That was it. Nothing else. The waiting was worse than any confrontation. My mind spiraled. Was he going to go to NAU and withdraw? Was he going to post everything online? Tell my friends more lies to finish the job? No matter how I tried to brace for it, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jacob wasn't done with me yet. And the scariest part, I didn't know if I deserved forgiveness. Because somewhere, deep down, part of me still felt justified. And that was the ugliest truth of all. The silence between Jacob and me didn't last. The following Monday, I walked into school and saw the flyer. Hundreds of them, taped to lockers, pinned on bulletin boards, folded on lunch tables. It was a copy of my written confession. The exact document I had signed in the principal's office, the one I was told would remain in my school file. Someone had gotten their hands on it and printed it everywhere. At the bottom, in bold font, was a caption. Would you trust her? I couldn't breathe. The hallways, already hostile, turned savage. People took pictures, laughed. I heard someone call me Judas. Someone else muttered, psycho. No one sat next to me in class. Teachers looked at me like they didn't know what to do. That day, I skipped lunch entirely and locked myself in a bathroom stall. That's where I stayed until someone finally banged on the door and yelled, "Principal wants you." I was barely holding it together when I entered her office. She looked even more exhausted than I felt. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked, pointing to a crumpled flyer on her desk. Her eyes narrowed. "We've launched an investigation, but off the record. Your brother's name is being mentioned. A lot." My stomach flipped. Of course it was him. Who else had access? But he wouldn't really go that far, would he? I walked home that day, alone. The bus ride felt like a coffin. At home, Jacob was in the kitchen, calmly stirring a pot of chili like nothing happened. "You proud of yourself?" I asked, dropping my bag. He didn't look up. "Of what?" "You know what. Be more specific." I slammed the flyer on the counter. His eyes scanned it, and a slow smirk formed on his face. "I guess some people just believe the truth should be public." "You promised you wouldn't do this." "I never promised anything," he said, voice cold. "I said you'd see. You want to destroy me. Go ahead. Just say it to my face." He turned to me then. "I don't want to destroy you. I want you to understand how it feels. To be hated." He shook his head. "To have your life ripped apart by someone who should have had your back." The room felt smaller, hotter. I stepped back. "You already won. You have everyone. What more do you want?" He stared at me for a long time. "I want you to feel alone. You don't have to try that hard," I whispered. That night I sat in bed staring at the ceiling again. Except this time I wasn't thinking about escape. I was thinking about penance. Maybe I deserved all of it. Maybe this was how you learn the cost of betrayal. Not in one big punishment, but in 1,000 tiny ones. Every day. Still, something shifted inside me. Not defiance, not hope. Just the decision to stop pretending I could make this go away. The next morning, I walked into the school auditorium during the daily announcements. I climbed up on the stage before the faculty could stop me and walked to the mic. Everyone was murmuring, whispering. I took a breath. "I lied," I said, voice steady. The room fell silent. I wrote the essay. I submitted it under my brother's name. I did it because I was jealous, because I didn't believe I was enough. A murmur ran through the crowd, but I kept going. "I know most of you hate me now. I understand. But if you're going to talk about me, not some edited version of the truth. Don't hide behind flyers or DMs or whispers." I looked out at the sea of faces. My brother had every right to be angry. I took something from him I can never give back. But what I did doesn't make me a monster. Just a coward. I stepped down before they could cut the mic. That afternoon, the principal gave me detention for unauthorized use of school equipment. But the whispering died down, just a little. Jacob didn't talk to me for 2 more weeks. Then one evening, he walked into my room and closed the door. "Why'd you do it?" he asked. I blinked. "You know why." "No. I know the excuse. I want the reason." I stared at the floor. "Because I wanted to know what it felt like to win. Just once." He didn't respond. "I spent my whole life watching you be perfect. Even your mistakes got forgiven. And I just wanted one thing that felt like mine. I never asked to be the golden child." "No," I said. "But you loved being it." Silence stretched out. Finally, Jacob spoke. They still haven't said anything about my scholarship, but if they pull it, I'll take the blame. You already did, he muttered, then paused. Just stop pretending like an apology fixes everything. I nodded. I know. He walked out without another word. And weirdly, that felt like the beginning of something. Maybe not forgiveness, but the end of the war. Update: 6 months later, Jacob got into a different school with a smaller ship, but he went. I went and knew and kept my head down. We don't talk much, but he sometimes likes my photos on Instagram. Mom and Dad are trying. I don't expect anyone to forget. I just hope maybe someday they'll understand. Or if not them then someone reading this, someone like me, who made one mistake, one terrible mistake, and is still trying to live after it. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.